This is CNBC Reports. At the end of the day, your first look at tomorrow.
We're rolling up our sleeves, putting on some goggles, and investigating the real cause of GM's death. Was it General Motors itself or the regulators that have blood on their hands? Peter Flaherty is with the National Legal and Policy Center. Martin Weiss is CEO of Weiss Research. Peter, seems like a lot of federal regulation, state laws, got in the big car makers' way, and GM's especially. What do you think?
Well, sure. I mean, we can't debate the point that the managements of these companies failed, because they clearly did. But I would ask, why did they fail? I would say it's because of government regulation. First, we had the safety regulations. Then we had the fuel economy standards. And the result not only was more costly cars that were harder to sell, but it also made all these companies make the same thing. It put a damper on innovation, and all these executives were making the same decisions.
Right.
And it hurt competition between them.
Marty, what do you think?
I think that's absolute hogwash. Sure, I mean, regulation may have played some role, but look, General Motors has made a series of egregious, blunderous errors. First of all, in 1998, they had a plan B, which was to build electric cars. They scrapped it after building only 1,500. In 2003, they offered 0% financing across the board. By 2005, they had built up $150 billion in debt. So now they're not only borrowing from future revenues, they're borrowing through the nose from creditors.
Martin, all that's true, of course.
One after another, and this showed just a culture of arrogant, cocky complacency that prevented them from listening to alternative
But Martin, you forgot their biggest shortcoming, and that was a failure to take on the unions. No executive in Detroit would dare take on the unions or build a non-union plant in a southern state. Now, there's a reason for that. That's because of the government, because of the power of the United Auto Workers on our government. If one of them tried, they would have been run out of town. And now we have the ultimate manifestation of it, where the UAW has an equity stake in the company, and I predict the results are just going to be worse and worse.
Gentlemen, let me steer us back. Martin, wait a minute, please. Let me steer us back to government regulation, because while I agree with what you both have said, and certainly GM suffered from what one car executive told me was like this big company syndrome, and they thought we're so big that we just can't fail, and it turns out they were wrong about that. Government regulations did distort the entire structure of the industry because of the CAFE standards for miles per gallon. What the American car makers had to do was make a whole bunch of teensy little cars that no one wanted to buy when gas was $2 a gallon, lose money on them just so they could they could lower the average of their miles per gallon, and then make a lot of money on the big SUVs. Now, if we had a structure that reflected the real market, really, GM, Ford, Chrysler, they should have been making these big honking gas guzzlers, because that's what was selling, that's what they wanted to make. And the foreign brands could come in, do non-union labor on tiny cars at a cheap price and still make a profit. Everyone would have been happy. But, Peter, we couldn't have a real market because of rules like that.
Well, that is correct. And where did these regulations come from? They came not from the public, not from consumers. They came from the activists like Ralph Nader and Joan Claybrook. I think they're a poor substitute for the wisdom of crowds. Instead of these people deciding what we should drive and how much it should cost, it should have been millions of consumers making individual decisions in the marketplace. And you're right about these fleet standards. Why do all these car companies have to do the same thing? Why couldn't we have specialization? A company that makes, muscle cars, a company that makes little cars, a company that makes small cars, big cars.
Marty, you get your last shot, Marty.
If you want to analyze,
companies all had to make the same thing.
It's Marty's turn, guys.
If you want to analyze every problem, every failure based on this filter of trying to find the regulatory demon in every corner, you're not going to learn the lesson of history. You're going to fail to learn the lesson of history. And that lesson is going to result in more failures, Ford, even Fiat.
What's your lesson, Marty? Socialism works? Because that's where we're headed. We'll see how well it works.
Well, nice debate, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I hope you both come back. And before we leave, let me give you one thought. You know, the most important law of business is demand, supply and demand, right? And let's remember something. GM sold over 100,000 or 200,000 cars last month. How many hybrids did it sell? 1,700. That's all all the people that wanted to buy them. So what are we doing with these tougher CAFE regulations? I got to tell you, we're going down the wrong road. Thanks for being here, folks.
You bet. Thank you, guys.